Whether we want it or not, hurricane season will be with us for the next 6 months, starting June 1st. But, it doesn't take a hurricane or a tropical storm to bring trees down and cause plenty of damage in the process. The reality is there's some things homeowners can and should be doing to minimize damage to trees and nearby structures. Amaury Martinez is an arborist with Davey Trees here to talk about that and give us some advice. Amaury, thank you for being here. I know some things we just can't guard against, but I've heard that trimming our trees is one of the main things we can do. Why is it so important to trim trees back as we head into the hurricane season?
Hi, good morning, Gabriel. It is very important because if the canopy of your trees is really heavy, it will retain more wind, causing more pressure at the main stem of the tree and the base. So if you have a tree that is pretty weak and is retaining wind, most likely you'll have some broken branches or possibly the tree uprooting. I
know that it's all about making sure your tree is healthy. I'm kind of curious about what we can do. If you have the difference between a young tree and an old tree, there's different things you do for a young tree as opposed to an older tree, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. On younger trees, they are, since they're still establishing or, they're in good health, unless something drastic happens, then that's when you're going to have problems. But I would be really careful with mature trees just because since they go through storms, changing weather, all kinds of things, there's some factors that you need to look out for, especially, like I said, with mature trees. And one of them being decay or anything bad growing at the base of the tree or at the main trunk.
And that can be just as easy as inspecting it. You can see decay, can you not? Easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And decay will usually form around the main stem or the main limbs, and that's due to either the tree being around too much moisture for a long time, or maybe an injury that happened, injuries of some sort that happened in the past, and now the tree is unable to close that injury fast enough, so decay starts to form.
So sometimes damage is going to happen after storms, whether it's a tropical storm or whatever kind of storm you may have. This past weekend, we had some storms that were around, and I saw in my neighborhood, for example, a nearby park, it had some big tree limbs down. These were mature pecan trees that I'm talking about here. But regardless of the type of tree, when that happens, when you see the branch just break off, do you go in and do you saw make a clean cut where the branch broke away from that point forward? I mean, how do you repair the damage that happens when you lose that branch?
Yeah, sometimes it will depend on the situation. I mean, the best scenario would be the branch breaks and it leaves a stub, and then you're able to just clean up the broken branch and then cut the stub right where it needs to be cut at the right at the collar. But sometimes the branch rips all the way back to the main stem, creating a bigger injury for the tree, which is it's really not good. It's really bad for the tree. It takes a longer time for the tree to heal.
Reading about getting ready for this interview, and I saw that it's important to tell people about fertilizing trees. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever fertilized my tree. What is that process? How do you do that? Is that like you stick a peg? How do you do that? How do you fertilize a tree?
The method that Davey Tree uses, I mean, we produce our own fertilizer brand, something that you can't get at the stores. And the process for that would be we mix the fertilizer in the tank with hundreds of gallons of water, and then we would show up at your place and inject it into the soil. All of our fertilizer it doesn't contain any chemicals, so basically we're trying to reproduce what's available for the tree when they're growing in the woods. Put it in a powder form and then apply it in a liquid form to your tree. So I mean, you're getting slow release of nitrogen. You're getting really good nutrients and minerals that the trees will need to either recover from the drought or from construction damage or from heavy pruning.
Last question for you now about mulch. I've seen mulch piled up in like a volcano around trees, and I think I've heard this different in terms of how you do it. People tend to pile that mulch up around the base of the tree. Good or bad?
mulch is really good for the tree if you do it the proper way. You mentioned volcano mulching. Volcano mulching, it's actually really, really bad for the trees because excess mulch will create moisture, extra unwanted moisture at the base of the tree, and can possibly cause some rot right at the base, which obviously you don't want on a tree. But mulching, if you do about 2 or 3 inches of mulch around the base, that's actually good because the mulch will break down and produce organic matter, which will become food for the tree, and it will kind of keep the weeds, the weed population down. The tree will be able to have more moisture there because of the mulch. So mulch is good. It's just when you have a lot of it, it becomes a problem.
Well, I appreciate you, sir. I feel so much more knowledgeable. I'm going to go down my neighborhood and tell all my neighbors about how smart I am now with their trees. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can all have safe and healthy trees that'll keep them from falling down and hurting someone and damaging our house. Amaury Martinez from Davey Tree, thank you so much this morning, sir.
Thank you.
Next week, several special guests here on Houston Newsmakers. Final thoughts and a look at who they are.